Christine Kane, you are a musician, a songwriter, a coach, and an author, and you just call the Soul Source Entrepreneur, an unconventional success plan for the highly creative, secret, secretly sensitive, and wildly ambitious. And you are the perfect guest for my podcast. There's so many people who wants to know how is it done, and the other part wants to be inspired that yes, it is possible. We can do the things that we love. So thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. What an honor. Thank you.
So, Christine, I've been looking at your YouTube videos and also don't think that I'm stalking you, it's just that I like them very much.
No,
And
that's
then
great.
the podcast, your voice is so encouraging that it makes me feel like, yes, no matter what crazy dream I had in the back of my head, it is possible. It's just, I just need like to know that somebody else is doing it for me to have that much more self-confidence for me to know that yes, it's possible, I can do that too. Maybe can we start by the time that you were working in a cubicle? What were you doing and why was it so suffocating for you?
Well, like many people who are entrepreneurs and dreamers at heart, I think a lot of us, we are surrounded by people who don't believe in dreams or they don't believe things are possible. And if you grew up in that environment, I think it can be very hard to have a dream and then take that first step to go and live into that dream. And that's sort of what my whole journey has been about since you had used the word journey earlier when we were talking. And I had gone to college. I had done everything my family and friends expected of me. I got out of college and I got a reputable cubicle job at a PR firm. I was doing all the right things, and after about a few months, I thought this can't be what my life is going to be about. And everyone approved of what I was doing, but I had this deeper dream. And I did not know this. My podcast is called The Soul Sourced Business, and my book is called The Soul Sourced Entrepreneur. But I really believe that we are called by our dreams and we're called by our ideas. And it's really up to us to take those steps. And so I was so, like you said, suffocated and feeling like this couldn't be the only path for me, that I finally just decided to leap. And like you, I found a lot of encouraging voices around me. Like I was reading a lot of different books, and I realized this it was going to be now or never. And I leapt, I quit my job, I moved to another city, and I started to pursue my first dream, which was to become a musician and a songwriter.
And you already knew music, I guess, or were you just jump
I
into learning?
I could play like Kumbaya on the guitar. I couldn't play that much. I actually wasn't that good. I was really passionate about writing,
Right.
and I had written for my, college newspaper. I had had a lot of writing, and I loved music, and I had never thought I could give myself that chance. So it threw a lot of people in my life off. They were very scared for me. They predicted my doom. They predicted my failure, and I went and did it anyway. And I will say, for those people who are more timid about taking chances, it was the best thing I ever did. And it was hard, but it was the best thing I ever did.
Christine, I find that so many people suppress those dreams until they until age 65, until that one day that they get the golden pen and the certificate and the 401k, and someone gives them permission to finally go and pursue their dreams. Why do you think people don't try to uh, just break the chains sooner and try to pursue the things that they want to do?
That's a great question. And I think each person has to answer that for themselves, because what we're talking about at the core of that question is fear. I think I've experienced this with coaching. Now I've coached now for 15 years, coached people in their dreams, and we all have different flavors of how fear hits us. But in order for our culture and society to keep working the way it does, a lot of people have to really be so scared to just take a chance. And
Mm.
entrepreneurs and, like I said, visionaries, artists, dancers are the ones who step out of that circle of fear and say, instead of being fear based, I'm going to be future based. And it's a very different energy. It's a really different choice that most people aren't necessarily willing to make.
Well, hopefully, with the examples that you are providing and the millions of other dreamers who finally succeed at their dreams, maybe some people can see themselves in the mirror and say, "Oh, I'm not happy where I am. I think I'm going to just change life and go and move to another city or change jobs or do the things that I want to do." Okay, so you moved from one city to the other. You decided to start writing music. Can you tell us more about that journey?
Oh, it's hard to even talk about because it was so disjointed. There were so many different obstacles that came up in the way, as with anything. But I really truly believe that the obstacle is the way, as they say in Stoicism. But for me at that time, what I had to do was start to realize that one of the myths that we are presented with as humans is, I think a lot of business people and entrepreneurial types can often say, well, if you want to really do this thing you want to do, you have to be this, you have to have this skill set, you have to already have all these things. And that journey for me was learning all of those things because I don't think you have to be wired to understand business. I don't think you have to know everything. You learn as you go. So you don't go, I always say to people, don't go get the education first and get all the facts and data first. Leap into it and learn as you go because that will make you a wiser and more confident person and business owner and entrepreneur, whatever it is you're dreaming of doing.
Well, I think a lot of people want to make sure all the lights are green before before they start their journey.
It's so true.
You had 7 CDs, a DVD, and you were 15 years in the music business. Can you tell us a little bit more of the day-to-day struggle as a musician?
For me, my biggest fear was always putting myself out there. It was it, I have a very shy side and a little bit of that self-doubt that we all have. And so putting my CDs in the hands of promoters, asking to do performance dates. At first that was the hard thing, but I will tell you then the next part of it was I was an independent musician. So I did not have I had my own record label. I didn't
Right.
have,
Because no
support.
one will take you, or because you just have so much belief in yourself that you didn't need anyone?
Well, in my book, I actually tell the story of it. I was offered a record deal and I looked at it and my ego wanted to sign that bottom line. I wanted to be able to say I had a record deal. But when I looked at the money of it, when I looked at the lack of freedom of it, my I really believe, and this is why I call my book Soul Sourced, I really believe that my soul stepped in and said, let's not do it. And what I actually look at that as a almost like a divine intervention because it forced me to learn how to run a business. It forced me to learn how to hire people who could support me. It forced me to learn how to put myself out there when I was scared of doing that. And so I created my own record label, I created my own business, I built kind of my own music empire on my own, and the business skills I grew are what let me then start all over again and create a whole new business from scratch that became a coaching company.
Wow. So you mentioned freedom. I don't know much about the music industry. What do you mean by lack of freedom when you were about to sign that contract?
Okay, so when you sign with a record label, it's great because it can always look very like, oh, she's famous or he's famous now. But your artistic freedom is often taken from you in that you don't have a say on your album art, or
Mhm.
you don't necessarily get to choose the songs that go on your CD. I was my own songwriter, so that would have happened. I would have put my own songs on it. But you're told what to do in order to it's possible. And in all of my dealings with music executives, I really started to just get the sense that there wasn't as much of a love of the art of it all as there was
Sales.
a need for the commercial success of it all, because that record label has to keep going. Whereas when you are an independent, if anybody's a fan of Ani DeFranco, she was kind of the leader of all of this. When you're an independent artist, you make all the money from every CD that you sell. Artistic freedom you want. Your career can go in the direction you want. You can play at whatever venue or event or festival that you want. And you don't always have that kind of freedom when it comes to being with a record label, or it's kind of like almost in some ways having a job.
Mm.
You have to recognize that you're there for somebody else's ultimate end. And I think we live in a world now where no one has to be confined by that. I think you've had Seth Godin on here, correct?
Yes,
So
yes.
that's Seth's big message, is that you don't need a gatekeeper anymore.
Right, right.
And that's where you get that freedom. And he, eventually stopped working with publishers on his books because he wanted his own freedom to say what he wanted to say.
Right. Okay. So, from what I get in your books, people, you were meeting people backstage and you were kind of giving them tips on how to follow their dreams. Can you tell us about that part?
Yeah, they I was performing, and when my songs are not, motivational songs. They weren't anything like that. But what happened was, and I really believe that, and you would know this just from dance, the energy that I had on stage, I think people started to notice when I got more confident and when I was getting more clear in who I was. And they would come up to me and they would wait till the end of the show. They'd wait till after I'd signed CDs and they would say to me, I want whatever you're doing, I want in my business. Or I want to follow my dreams. How did you do this? And
Right.
it wasn't because they wanted to be musicians. Some of them were graphic designers, some of them were artists, some of them were coaches. And I started to just say, okay, come backstage with me while I'm packing up my gear. And let me just tell you some of the things I've learned. And those questions and so the people asking me that made me think, well, why don't I just host a retreat to teach this stuff? Even though I'm a musician, I just put it out there. I just sent it out to my list and I said, I'm going to do a retreat teaching this. And it filled up immediately. And then I started doing about 4 of them every year because people really wanted this information. And that's what ultimately led me to create my coaching company.
Wow. So, as I was watching your YouTube videos, the one thing that I saw is that in between sets,
Mhm.
you speak to the audience. So you establish that connection and you express your fears and your hopes and the things that you were thinking of when you were writing the songs, like the song about the guitar player with
Yeah.
all the so
Yeah.
you are connecting with the audience, telling, oh, this, I don't think that's the reality, this is what I think, or this is how I see things from my point of view. So I go to music festivals and the artists just play one song after the other one. And although we love their music, we don't get that personal connection. So I think that in a sense that was part of the your success. People already felt like they were your friend. Like today, before speaking to you, I listened to your podcast and I already feel like I'm your friend, although this
Yeah.
is the first time we speak together. So I guess this communication with people around us and expressing how we feel and how we see things is the one thing that kind of propel us forward.
Yeah. And I think that's key when it comes to, for me, it's one of my, I would say it's one of my values, is that I really believe that we learn from each other. And as a coach, I help catalyze my clients just by the fact that I share some of me. I don't act like I am in the know. And my book, I mean, you've seen my book. I don't act like I am she who knows everything. I share my stories and my vulnerability as part of my business path, my entrepreneurial path, and my artist path, because we're at our core, we're all these, you know, vulnerable, emotional, mental humans going around. And I think we're all lied to in some ways in that we're told there's some one answer that's going to make it all right for you. And the best thing you can do is just live into the things that you face and you start to learn your own wisdom. You learn how to navigate things. You learn how to do what I call in the book manage your power.
Wow. And we're all waiting to be discovered as well by somebody else and be given permission by the permission giver.
Yes.
Uh, but okay, so people were asking you questions and you decided to do your first retreat. What does that mean? You went away for a weekend, for a week?
Oh no.
You went to
Yeah.
outside of town or to another city? What does that mean?
So I live in Asheville, North Carolina, which is in the mountains, and it's gotten to be kind of a boom town now. Everybody wants to move here. But when I started my retreats, it wasn't a boom town yet. And I wrote to my list because I had my own mailing list. I was a smart marketer. I'd been studying people like Seth Godin. And I wrote to my list and I said, I've been getting a lot of questions and I want to create a retreat and I want to teach people how to follow their dreams. And I booked a retreat center about, 7 miles outside of Asheville in the mountains. And I said, I've done this. Let me know if you want to take part in it. It was very casual at first, and it was the first one I did was actually at a resort that I don't know if anybody knows the American pop singer from the 70s, John Denver, but he had owned this spot. It was a big, huge property in the mountains of North Carolina. And we all met there. There was about 35 people who came, and I didn't charge enough probably. And it was just me winging it, doing my very first retreat, and people loved it. They really loved it, and they responded well. And some of them I'm still in touch with now. It was that big of a deal for them.
But can you give us a more precise definition of a retreat?
Oh,
One day, one evening, one week?
it was
How
3
many?
days. Yeah, it was 3
Okay,
days. They got there on a Friday. This is how I laid it out. You
okay,
could make your retreat however you want it to be.
right.
But I've always done 3 days because I think 3 days is more important. One day is more of a would be more of a workshop. So a retreat to really start to sink in, I think has to be at least 3 days. And mine started on the Friday afternoon. They'd get there on Friday afternoon. We'd stay all night Friday night, all day Saturday, and then break on Sunday afternoon.
And this is you to all this time you taking what is it? 1 hour, 3 hours, 4 hours of
So
how
which,
to
yeah,
succeed in life?
it was I had to sit down and really think about what I wanted to teach because I hadn't taught at that point. And I laid out the sessions where our first session, I would say, here's what we're going to do. And I had a little introductory session, and I actually sent people out onto the hiking trails and told them to be silent for 1 hour before we began the retreat because I think silence is so important for our brains to start settling down because we are very, very stimulated and overstimulated in our culture. So I did that, and then I don't remember what I did now because I've done so many now events since then, but we started with intention. So day one was all about setting an intention and knowing who you are. And then day two was really about almost how I've laid out my book, what I call managing your power, because I know about intention is that once you set an intention, we think that it's just planting a seed and then everything will manifest. But intention is like planting a seed. And when you plant a seed, the first thing that comes up is not the sprout, it's the dirt. And so
Mm.
what I did was that whole second day was really about focusing on the dirt and all of our fears and all of our doubts and all of our mindsets. And we really, really dug in on that. And then on the third day, we set some intentions for the future. So
Wow.
that's, yeah.
Okay, so you say, wow, this works, people are interested, and I'm liking this. And then this, I guess from 2010 until now, this has been your main activity, create retreats and coach people?
Well, I stopped playing music in 2009. That was my last CD. And what I did was I shifted full time into a coaching business. So
Right.
it looks a little different than that because now I have clients who work with me for a full year, and we do retreats together, client retreats, and so they're much more focused on marketing, building teams, business operations, all of the things that most entrepreneurs haven't been trained in, because they start with an idea and they put it out there and then they say, "Oh my God, I have a business." And so
Right.
I really teach a lot about marketing and selling and messaging and who you are, and then a lot of mindset work as well.
Well, okay. And then among all this, you said, I know what to do. I'm going to write a book. Can you
Well,
take us to
yeah, 10
the
years
thought
later.
process?
Yeah,
Yeah.
10 years later. Well, the thing about writing a book is that I don't think it's for everyone. I don't think you have to do it. I just because I'm a writer and I had a blog for a long time, and people kept asking me to write a book, and I knew it was going to be a hard thing to do. So in 2015 I actually got the idea for this book because my clients kept saying to me, "You teach business in such a different way from anyone else I've ever learned about business from, that I think you really need to open up to the world and share this thing that you do." And I realized I'd been talking about how every business has two tracks. And your first track is called your strategy track. And that is all of the stuff we think is business, your marketing, your selling, your systems, your team, all of the stuff about business. But I always say that right alongside that is what I call the soul track. And that's mindset. That's all the soft
Mhm.
stuff that we ignore and we avoid and no one ever talks about.
It's the most
That's
important thing.
it is the most important thing, and that's what this book is about. It's all the stuff that no one ever talks about when it comes to having your own business, especially when it's just you.
Okay, well, I was looking through the book. Can we talk a little bit about the last session? I think it's called Navigating Decisions. And so a lot of people have this they tell yourself, oh, I think I should do this and I think I should do that, and they have a hard time arriving to the decision that they should take. So can you elaborate a little bit more on that chapter?
Okay, so I'll back up just a little bit. So the way I laid the book out is based on something I teach my clients and we say all the time to our clients, and that is, "I'm in."
I mean,
And
yes.
so "I'm in" is a statement of commitment because a lot of people try to avoid parts of themselves, or they avoid their marketing, or they avoid their selling. And "I'm in" basically means let's lean in here. And let's be present to what we're doing. So the that also is an acronym that's the framework of the book. So it starts with the first I is initiating intention. And the M is managing your power because, like I said, the dirt that comes up. The second I is interpreting circumstances because once you start moving, things happen all around. And then the last, as you described just now, is called navigating decisions. And so, what I call decisions that decisions are intentions with legs, meaning we all love to set intentions like, here's what I'm going to do. But the way our world starts to manifest our intentions is in two ways. One is through opportunity, and the other is through challenge. And what we're describing, that point of decision, is when you're faced with either an opportunity, like, what do I do? Should I do this? Oh my goodness, how do I know if this is the right thing? Or the challenge, in that is, what steps am I going to take now? And so when it comes to what's in front of you and you have to navigate decisions, the way I teach people to think about it is asking yourself first is, if you are when the decision that you're about to make, are you making it out of fear? Like, is it a fear-based decision? Or are you making it out of, you could say, love, or you could say future-based decision? Meaning, does this decision lead me closer to my intention? Even if it scares me, open up my intention, like, is it taking me closer to it? And if the answer is even sort of a yes, you have to step forward and take that action, because otherwise there will be no movement. You'll sit and spin your wheels forever, and that decision will just sit there being unmade and eating up a lot of your personal energy.
Wow. Okay. Wow, Christine, this is amazing. The book is out now, right? It was just
Right.
released
It's
yesterday.
just
Uh,
yesterday. Yes.
Perfect. And I will be publishing this podcast quite soon, in the next few days. So, can you tell the listeners where they can find it and where they can follow you and the retreats that you do and all these other activities and your podcast as well? It's just such
Oh,
a
thank
lovely
you.
voice.
Thank you. So the book is called The Soul Sourced Entrepreneur, and soul sourced is just like it sounds. You're being sourced by your soul. Your soul is driving this bus here. So it's The Soul Sourced Entrepreneur, an unconventional success plan for the highly creative, secretly sensitive, and wildly ambitious. And it is on Amazon, and you can go grab it. It just came out, like I said, yesterday. It already hit number one on the Women in Business chart, so we love that, and a few others. It's climbing steadily, so it's been a really huge, big deal for us. It's been really fun here on my team. And the podcast that you mentioned is similar title. It's called The Soul Sourced Business, and you can find that on iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcast. And my website is christinekane.com. That's where people can find me. And we are doing something. If this is coming out soon, I'm doing a retreat, an online version of my 3-day business retreat. It's called Click, and anyone who buys a book right now can come to the retreat, and they can, if you go buy a book, you can go to the website soulsourcedbook.com, and you can find out how to register for that retreat. And that has been in the past a sold out retreat we do every year here in Asheville, and it's usually $1,500, and we're opening it up just because
Wow.
COVID has thrown so many people into confusion and fear. And this is definitely for business owners. You want to have a business if you're coming to this, but we are opening it to people who buy a hardback copy of the book.
Wow. Thank you so much, Christine.